Right now, if you're cold, you'll do something no human being could do for 99% of our history. You'll get up, walk a few steps, and touch a small plastic box on the wall. And the air itself will get warmer. That's it. That's the whole ordeal. That's what winter is to you. Now take all of that away: the box, the walls, the roof, the sweater. Take away the idea that food exists in a building down the road, and leave everything else: a human body, no fur, tropical origins, standing in a landscape where the temperature has just dropped below freezing and is going to stay there, not for a night, but for the next 4 months. That was winter, for almost everyone who ever lived. And the question isn't really what did they do all winter. The question is how any of them were still alive in spring. Here's the thing people get wrong about winter. You think of cold as the enemy. It isn't, not directly. Cold is just the weapon. The actual enemy is time. A single freezing night you can survive. Almost anyone can survive one bad night. Winter isn't one bad night. Winter is a slow siege. Months where the world gives you nothing, takes heat out of your body every single hour, and hides or kills most of the things you'd normally eat. Every day you are running a deficit. Losing heat, burning through fat you can't easily replace. Winter doesn't try to kill you quickly, it tries to outlast you. And a naked tropical ape dropped into a European ice age should lose that contest badly. We didn't. And the way we didn't comes down to three inventions and one genuinely strange possibility. Start with the obvious one: fire. But fire alone doesn't win a winter. An open fire in an open landscape is a losing battle. The heat radiates off into the dark, and the wind takes the rest. What actually mattered was what our ancestors built around the fire. For a long time, we pictured Ice Age humans huddled deep in caves. That's mostly a Victorian myth. What the archaeology actually shows is more impressive. They built shelters. They took natural rock overhangs and weatherproofed them, draping heavy hides from the rock to block the wind, building tent-like structures inside from wooden poles and sewn skins, arranging everything around a hearth so the stone walls reflected the heat back inward. In some places where there were no caves and barely any trees, they built houses out of the only large building material available: mammoth bone. Dwellings framed from tusks and skulls and ribs, packed with hides and earth. A house made of the animal you were also eating. This is the first thing they did all winter. They didn't endure it in the open. They engineered a small pocket of survivable warmth, and they held it. But shelter only helps when you're inside it. The moment you step out to hunt, and you have to step out to hunt, you're back in the killing cold. So the second invention is the one that actually decided whether humans could live in the far north at all. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't fire. It was the needle. Around 30,000 years ago, humans started making fine-eyed needles from bone and ivory, with a hole bored through one end by a tiny flint drill. And the anthropologist Brian Fagan argues that this little sliver of bone is one of the most important inventions in human history. More important, arguably, than the wheel. Here's why. Before the needle, you could drape a hide over yourself. Loose, a gapping, letting the wind in at every edge. After the needle, you could sew. You could make tailored, fitted, multi-layered clothing, cut to the body, stitched at the seams, trapping a layer of warm air against the skin. The difference between a blanket thrown over your shoulders and an actual coat. That is the difference between visiting the cold and living in it. With sewn clothing, a human could step out into a landscape that would kill a bare body in hours, work all day, and come back. The needle didn't just keep people warm, it opened up half the planet. Now the hardest part: staying warm burns energy, and winter is precisely when food disappears. No fruit, no fresh plants. The herds thinned or moved. So the entire cold season became a math problem. Take in more calories than the cold steals from you using a landscape that has almost nothing to give. They solved it by turning autumn into a war effort. Before the cold came, they killed on a massive scale, driving whole herds of reindeer or horses into natural traps and killing far more than they could eat fresh. Because the point was never to eat it fresh. The point was the months ahead. They dried meat. They rendered fat. In the freezing north, the frozen ground itself became a storehouse. They cached food the way we stock a pantry, except the pantry was the whole landscape, and the deadline was survival. And they went for fat specifically. Not lean meat, fat. In deep cold, fat is the fuel that keeps a body running. Coastal groups leaned on seals and fish, inland groups on reindeer and mammoth. The whole winter diet was engineered without anyone knowing the word calorie. Winter wasn't survived in winter, it was survived in the autumn by people preparing for a season they could see coming. So, fire, shelter, sewn clothing, stored fat. That's how humans got through the winter. Unless, and this is where it gets strange, some of them did something else entirely. In a cave in northern Spain called Cima de los Huesos, the Pit of Bones, there's an enormous collection of human fossils, ancestors of the Neanderthals, going back around 400,000 years from a time of brutal glaciation. And in 2020, two researchers, Juan Luis Arzuaga and Antonis Bartziocas, looked closely at those bones and noticed something odd. The bones showed damage. Specific seasonal damage, lesions and growth disruptions of the exact kind you see in animals that hibernate. Layers where bone growth simply stopped for months at a time, over and over, year after year. The same signatures found in the bones of hibernating cave bears, whose remains, as it happens, were found in the very same pit. So they proposed something that sounds like science fiction, and they said as much themselves, that these early humans may have survived the worst of the winter by doing what the bears did, slowing their metabolism, retreating into a cave, and sleeping through the cold, hibernating, emerging in spring thinner, scarred in the bone, but alive. Now, this is contested. Plenty of scientists think there are other explanations, and the researchers themselves admitted how strange it sounds. Modern humans can't do this. We lost that capacity if we ever had it. But the marks on the bones are real, and the question they raise is genuinely open. For at least some of our ancestors, what did they do all winter? Might have the most unexpected answer imaginable. They may have slept through it. So what did ancient humans do all winter? They fought a 4-month siege. They built pockets of warmth out of bone and hide and held them against the wind. They invented the needle and stitched themselves into the cold. They spent every autumn preparing for an enemy they knew was coming, storing fat against the dark. And maybe, some of them, in the deepest cold, simply laid down in a cave and let their own bodies go still until the light came back. And you touch a box on the wall. There's nothing wrong with that. The box is one of the great achievements of our species. It's the thing all that struggle was for, but it's worth remembering on a cold night that winter used to be a thing you survived, with your whole body and your whole year never certain you'd make it. That being warm was not the default. It was the prize. Your ancestors spent 100,000 winters making sure that one day someone descended from them would be able to feel cold, stand up without fear, and make it stop. That someone is you. Try not to take the box for granted.